questions about live streaming. Hey, weren't we going to talk about live streaming first, by the way? I mean, live racing, the physical racing.
Sure, we can start with that. So, Mr. Wolf, you attended DeepRacer in person. How was that experience?
Yeah, AWS Summit in New York. I had to make my way down to the Jacob Javits Center. It took me like 2 hours to get there, but it was cool. It was a big space. I have a video about that. Um, the Javits Center in New York is an enormous conference center. Uh, it was full of AWS vendors, I guess vendors for AWS. Huge
Hmm.
space, lots of vendors, a lot of free swag, a lot of people milling around. And I remember it was a very warm day. But anyway, got inside, and in the corner was AWS DeepRacer. And what was so cool is I met I guess, two celebrities in our world. I mean, again, this is a very niche community, right? So no one
Right.
outside of DeepRacer knows who these people are. But I met Rogue and I met Paradisi at the event. They were racing, and it was cool to chit chat with them. Paradisi runs the AWS meetup group here in in New York, or not the AWS one, but the DeepRacer one. And it's an AWS community. I don't think it's an official AWS sanctioned thing, but anyway, he has a monthly get together where they talk about machine learning topics, deep racer, things like that. It's very cool. And Rogue, he won the championship a couple of years ago, I believe. So it was really cool to see them racing and how they tune the cars. And let me tell you, it's one thing to race virtually, right? But when you're
Yeah.
physically racing, you it sounds cheesy, but it might
You feel
sound
the speed.
cheesy, but I will say you get a rush. Your adrenaline starts to pump, right? And
Yeah.
you know, it is what it is.
Was
Uh,
it like one of those? Was it like one of those celebrity moments where, like, if anyone has seen Parks and Recreation, there is a celebrity moment where Ron Swanson from the show is really into woodworking, and he sees one of those big woodworking guys, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he always gets swamped with like fans, and there is no one around that woodworking celebrity." Was it one of those moments for you where there was no one around, but you were like fangirling over them?
Secretly, I did not want to admit that I was, like, oh my God, it's Rogue, right? Because at first I was like, Rogue who? And then I was like, oh shit, it's a Rogue, like the actual Rogue guy. So, uh, I, to be honest, I think I was more because everyone's just dressed casually, right? It's not like anyone is saying, hey, I'm super famous here, right? They're just you look
Hmm.
like regular people online on a long line. It took like I think the first time took 30 minutes to race. So if you're going to go to one of these summits, you have to go straight to Deep Racer, get your name, knock that out of the way because it will take up half a morning or the entire morning just to do one or two races, depending on how busy
Yeah.
it is. But I have to admit, I was more starstruck with, oh, I forgot the guy's name. It's so embarrassing. I should have done my homework before I came on board. But there was AWS, uh, the host, the MC, the guy that dresses up in the racing suit and everything, right? He was there. He hosts he's the one when you go into the when you he's the one that's always interviewing the racers in Las Vegas. Is it Glenn? Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Now I'm mortified. Um,
I'm sure he wouldn't mind that you don't remember his name.
yeah, I'm not a stalker or anything, right? But
Not that I know of till now.
no, 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 I'm not. I'm not. So no, but it was cool because uh, it's fun. There was someone with a video camera, and when they put the video, they asked me, "Hey, how did it feel?" And I'm like, "Oh, it feels great." That's when it's feels like a real thing. But anyway, with the car, every car, there are three different cars at this event. Each car is driving a little differently. So the first car was slow, and what was cool is I saw how I don't know what my lap time was, maybe like 8.5 seconds or something. And then Ro comes over and says, I see him and Paradisi chit-chatting, like, oh, you got to use this car, use that car. And I walk over and I'm like, hey, what are you guys talking about? And they explained that they think one of the cars is driving faster than the others, and everyone wants to drive the fast car, right? And it turns out Rogue got a faster time on what he thought was going to be a slow car, right? So it's all random. There's an element of randomness when you drive with physical cars that you don't get with the simulation. The car starts behaving differently, and also the person that's the pit crew, the person that's following the car around and picking up the car and putting it back on the track when
Yeah.
it goes, there's always a delay there, right? There's always uh, you know a little bit of how fast are they going to get the car and put it back on the track, right? I mean, that's also source of randomness. So I think it's a lot of fun. It's a completely different feel, and you get the adrenaline because you're changing the speed of the car on the fly. So I trained the car that I trained the car for with the maximum speed on the car was 2 meters a second, and driving it, I think it was driving faster than that, right? I think my last lap time was what 7 seconds,
You were on the
7.8.
leaderboard for some time, right? You were first for at least a couple
I,
of hours.
I was first for yes for like at least half an hour, and that felt amazing. And then of course these guys got like faster times, right? But
You think like Paradisi and others were scheming in the back end? They were like, we have to beat this guy.
no, they were rooting for me. See, that's what's nice, right? Like people were rooting for me, like, hey, great job, high five, right? This is what I like about the community, right? It's encouraging others to try to get involved and try it out, right? So no, everyone was super nice. And it's also kind of everyone knew anyone who did this long enough knows that you're gonna be up top for a little bit of time, right? Right. As the day goes on, the
Yeah,
competition gets more intense, right?
yeah,
And then the thing is, I wish I had taken video of Rogue's car. Like I was just so in awe. I didn't even take out the camera, right? I was just like looking at it. Perfect driving, as if I was watching the simulator, right? Perfectly smooth,
right.
great racing line. I mean, tremendous. My car was swerving left and right. It looked like what it looked like in the simulator. So I was zigzagging and I got a decent time. Rogue and Paradisi had, especially Rogue, had perfectly. I mean, like you would have thought there was someone in the car driving this thing. That's how good it was. And he got an amazing lap time, sub 7, maybe like close to 6 seconds, right? Like it was super fast. So we got a couple of
Hmm.
questions from Andrew here. He says, I've competed in physical track before and came in third. Hey, that's awesome. Congrats on that. I noticed firsthand that top virtual racers come last. Oh no, that's not true in New York. Rogue is the top racer. He came in first. It's really a crapshoot, basically, right? Okay, they drove off the tracks at lightning speed and crashed the wall while the slowest ranked like 7 and 8 won. I was wondering whether on physical track is using discrete easier than continuous when using the gamepad. Great question. I don't think it really matters. I don't know, but I will say this. Well, when I was talking to Paradisi and Rogue, they were, dare I say, shocked or at least surprised that my model was continuous. He's like, "What? That's an amazing time for continuous." So I felt a lot of street cred when he said that. I felt like, "Oh, awesome." I think most people are training on discrete. It's just faster to train, right? I've been playing with continuous models. It's a lot harder. It takes forever to train, to converge. As Rogue said, theoretically, continuous should be better, but in practice, it really isn't. I tend to agree. I started doing continuous because a lot of my viewers here are in the student league, and student league requires continuous action space. So I was like, hey, let me try it out. And it is definitely more challenging, I think. It makes you think about the reward function more deeply. That's just my personal opinion. But when it comes to physical racing, it would have been a lot easier if I just did discrete. I'm not gonna lie. So is it easier? Does it make a difference when using the gamepad? I don't know. I really don't know. But in when we're using, there was no gamepad. At least I don't think it was a gamepad. It's more like a joystick. All you can do is say up and down, right? So faster or slower. So if the car the car will react to the input it gets, whether or not it's continuous or um, discrete, right? So um, I don't know. I thought it was fine.
I'm
I
guessing
understand.
it's also a situation where discrete spaces are like 1 meters per second, 2, 3, 4, versus continuous will be a whole range of values. So it's just harder to optimize on a reward function.
Yeah, it starts, well, in my experience, it quickly converges to discrete like values, right? And why do I say that?
Yeah.
Because if you if you have a reward function that slopes, let's say it's linear, right? The reward function is reward equals speed, right? That's one of my
Yep.
favorite reward functions, really easy. Um, and you have the maximum, action speed from 1 to 2 meters per second. It's going to learn that 2 is better, right? So it's going to be clustering over time. It's going to cluster around 2 meters a second, maybe 1.9, 1.98, right?
Yep.
But it really depends on the random number generator that's used during training. So, I'm not, I don't know what the distribution is. I've always assumed it was uniform, but it will quickly, like, if your reward function is very aggressive, like some of mine are, it will quickly like only do that action, right? And usually it's in the worst space, right? Like it's, oh, you want to go 4 meters a second on the hairpin turn? Sure. Boom. It's like, no, that's not what I want the speed, right? I want the speed to be
It
slow
flies right
here.
off.
Yeah, exactly. So even if I change it, it's just, I guess it learned that that's a very good value somewhere else on the track where it might have worked one time and it just messes you up, right? So you got to be careful.
Yep.
Sometimes if the reward function is too skewed, you're basically setting yourself up for failure on these hairpin turns. All right. Andrew says,
How's
yes,
your
I used
experience
an,
translating? Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, Andrew says, I used an iPad kind of thing accelerator. Oh, yes, that's true. It is an iPad. I'm sorry. Oh, you said gamepad. So I was thinking, sorry, I'm old school. I thought you meant like a GameCube controller or something. So no, it's not a GameCube controller. You're right. It's an iPad where you have, and I have to admit that that was hard to actually get to get right. You almost have to be, you have to anticipate when you want to slow down and speed up by a second because of either latency or just because, it just takes a while for the car to actually, I guess latency, right? It takes a while for the car to go ahead and make that change. But I'm talking to someone who came in third, Andrew. That's awesome. I came in fourth. I think it was fourth or fifth. I think fifth. So anyway, definitely top 10 that day with a continuous action space model. And by the way, I only trained that model for 6 hours, 8 hours. It was the night before. It was like 1 in the morning, and I was like, oh my God, I don't have a model for this. And I was like, I've been thinking about this for months. I like how I want to go to New York, how I want to do this thing, and of course, life got in the way. So I said, screw it, Hail Mary pass here on this one. Trained the model for 6 hours, copied it down in the morning, went to AWS, and I was like, man, I hope this thing doesn't suck. And it was pretty decent, but it was yeah, it was kind of last minute.
I was going to ask you, how did your experience translate from like having a model that's trained virtually to putting it on a physical track? And I guess part two of that question would be, would you be interested in setting up a physical track at your home?
Yeah, I am really tempted to do that. However, let's face it, it's a pain in the butt. You're the ones who's gonna have to like run after the car, right? There won't be a pit crew there
Yeah,
to do it for you. So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
gonna race. Like when you go to AWS, it's a luxury, right? You put the car, even if your model sucks, right? Someone else is picking up that car for 3 minutes straight, right?
Yep.
Or two, whatever it was. I think it was 3 minutes. Even if even the model's terrible, they're going to be there, and big thanks to them. That's a big, that's a difficult job. They're hurting their backs doing this thing, right? If you're at home, you have to do that yourself. You have to have the space. This thing is huge. It's bigger than, two-car garage. So who has a a two-car garage worth of space for a track. Right? I don't think anyone really does realistically. You have to do it outside. So yeah, it'd be cool, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't think it's really worth it, to be honest with you. So, you know, but I met someone, I think I forget who told me that they had it. I don't know. It might have been Paradisi because Paradisi only does physical racing. He doesn't like doing simulations, which, by the way, you know, there's this uh, there's this interesting thing. One of our colleagues, IcyFire, I don't know if you remember him. He he used to he was very involved uh, in the corporate league, and
Yeah, yeah,
I remember telling you, oh, this guy, this he's really good in DeepRacer, and yet his team isn't doing that well in the simulations, right? And I'm like, oh, well, now I know, right? Because anyway, basically, Paradisi explained to me that he doesn't do he focuses mostly on he focuses mostly on physical racing, right? Which I think is more fun. I have to admit, it is more fun.
yeah.
All right, so let's
It would be
see.
fun to do like head to head in physical racing. I don't know if that happened.
It happened in our corporate league in the very beginning, and
Hmm.
at headquarters, right? They did do physical racing, and then with the pandemic, they switched to virtual. And honestly, virtual is easier. It's just easier to
Yeah, it is
run a
significantly
weekly
easier.
race,
Yeah,
right? It's just better. But it would be good to have a final race that was physical.
head to head. Yep.
I think that would be good. Let's see. Andrew says I've seen people buy those jigsaw mats and able to create tracks at home. Yeah, people do that, but from what I heard from talking to people at DeepRacer who have physical tracks at home, right? They said it sucks. That's literal quote. I won't say who said that, but they said it just sucks, right? Again, like if you have to pick up the car constantly, that's not fun, right? DeepRacer as the
Yeah.
summit is fun because someone else is doing the hard work, let's be honest. And you're focused on actually driving fast, right? So I don't know, unless you can get your little kid to do it for you, I don't see it. Um,
Yeah, I feel
anyway,
like
it
that
will
would be
be
the
fun. It
best.
will be fun.
Have your kids pick up the car for you. Make it like a fun, enjoyable bonding experience.
I guess, but I don't think I don't know. I don't. You have to be really passionate about it, and I think people on this channel are probably really passionate about it. But most people just couldn't care less. Let's just face it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's. But I what I mentioned was what I was thinking was it'd be cool to have like a regional physical racing track, right? Like, meaning if I knew 10 people within a 20 or 30-mile radius who would want to get together once a month and do an underground race like they do. Like, is it David Smith used to do? I think it was David Smith from AWS. He he has like these underground races in London where they download models to the car and they race in the office on a Saturday morning or something. I think that would be awesome. But to be again a loner by yourself with a track at home, that's too sad and depressing for me. So yeah, if I had 10 friends who were into this and we dedicated one racing season, let's say over the winter, to race monthly physically, and we were all like hanging out and chilling, I think that would be worth it. But I think Deep Racer is pretty lonely as it is. A lot of us are training on our own, right? So all right, if there are no other questions or comments about physical racing, maybe we should move on to our next topic. There you have it, folks. Team Voltron. Stay tuned for more. Make sure to subscribe and click that like button if you want to see more of this content.